I have insurance, and so I don't need to focus on anything else other than just my physical well-being, because a bike is completely replaceable. And the fact that you have insurance and that you're protected and you're covered, all you need to do is focus on yourself and getting yourself better. Like, I'm going to try and I'm going to take risks and I'm going to take chances, because why else? Why would you not, right? I'm Alicia Speak. I'm 37. I'm a full-time lawyer, but I'm also a cyclist for Cycle Team London.
These days we're used to seeing Australian riders doing really well at the Tour de France, and in the case of Cadel Evans, of course, winning it. But that's not always been the case. In the 1980s, the early 80s, Australians were just starting to make their mark, and there was a trailblazer who certainly did that in style, an iconic figure in Australian sport, the first non-European ever to wear the coveted maillot jaune. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Phil Anderson. Good to see you, Phil.
Thank you very much.
Well, here we are, and you obviously won't be aware of this, but it's been a while. The pair of us go back further than you think, and hopefully we've got some evidence of that here behind us. I do apologise for the garb that I was wearing that day.
What are those shorts there?
Yeah. Okay, can we just move on from the shorts? But yeah, I don't know if any of you were in for the Matt Stevens chat with Greg LeMond a few minutes ago, but Matt was saying that he was 16. His dad took him to the Tour for the first time when he was 16, and the day when Greg was in a breakaway. That was the day when he really latched onto it, and that was what he wanted to do. It's a very impressionable age. It's a key age, for cycling fans, those sort of teenage years. And I was just turned 16 there. Probably. I mean, you must have been thinking, oh, great, another Sean Kelly fan turning up. But have you any idea that's what year that would be? Presumably from your jersey? No? Do you need a bit of help with that one?
That would be in the mid-'80s.
Yeah, 1985. That was at the Tour de France. I'll give you another clue. Time trial.
Keep going.
Okay, it's the time trial. It was on the day of the time trial at Villard-de-Lans.
Oh, okay.
In the 85 Tour de France. And that was a good year for you in the Tour, wasn't it? Fifth?
Villard-de-Lans is up in the mountains. That doesn't look
no, because it's the plateau, isn't it? From Lons-en-Vacourt to Villard. That's the road between the two where you thought you got away from all the fans.
Yes.
And then this 16-year-old lad spotted you relaxing on a deck chair.
What sort of set of wheels is that? Is it a Sigma or something?
What's your car? It was your car.
Oh, it was my car?
Yeah, it was your...
No. Wouldn't have been my car. Would have been a team car maybe, but anyway.
Yeah, no, it was literally family.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was your former wife who took the picture, actually.
Okay. Well,
yeah, but happy days. So anyway, fifth in the Tour de France that year. But it was a good year, wasn't it? Twice finishing fifth in the Tour de France, 85.
Yeah, 85 came fifth, so...
and in great company. I mean, when you look at the people who are... I was just looking at the top five that year. The Badger won it, so Bernardino the winner. Greg LeMond second, Stephen Roach third, Kelly four, yourself fifth. You were ahead of Pedro Delgado, Lucia Herrera, any number of other top names. Do you remember a great deal in terms of specifics about some of your rides in the Tour de France, or does it all sort of merge into one in a year like 85?
No, I mean, I can still remember a lot of things from my career, and especially about the Tour de France, because, as a pro rider, the Tour de France is possibly the most important event of the year. And I did 13 of the tours, finishing each one, first one in 81, last one in 94, so, I saw a bit of an evolution in the race, and of course it's kept going in that trajectory to what we see today, But from my very first tour, my job I was there as a domestic, helping our leader Jean-René Bernadotte, and I think it was on day 5. I had the fortune of hitting the mountains for the first time. I'd never really ridden in the mountains before, and the first time I'd really seen the a Haut-Category climb, and
not such a big thing in Australia.
Mountains. Not such a big thing in Australia. No, it was quite daunting actually that first day. Everybody all the riders are a bit nervous. As you come to the mountains, but yeah, for me, I didn't know what to expect.
Really?
But yeah, that was a
So
big.
what was it like then, your first sighting of the proper mountains in the Tour de France when you were riding along in the peloton?
Yeah, I was. I noticed the pace was picking up in the bunch. I mean, back then we didn't have GPS units or radios, so you haven't got the director yelling in your ear. You've got 5Ks to go or anything, and the pace was picking up in the bunch. And we used to have those cards, and they actually still have those cards. Riders still get those little cards with the profile of the stage on there, and we had those cards, and so it was no secret there's a mountain coming up, but the pace was getting further and faster, and I was looking up above. The riders were getting faster. There's a bunch of bloody banshees going. I don't know, 50, 60 k's an hour, like we're sprinting, and I'm looking above all the heads and trying to see where I couldn't see any mountains, and I asked a teammate, and he said, no, you got to look up there, And I looked up above the clouds, and you could see these peaks of mountains. And of course, from Australia, I'd never seen anything like that. So, for me, it was quite horrific. And sure enough, after about a kilometre or two, we took a ride up a goat track, and then it was on for young and old. And
what about Jean-René Bernadeau at this point? You
yeah,
still with him at that point?
Well, yeah, we had like 4 climbs that day, and we had our humble leader, Jean-René, the French champion, that we were meant to be looking after. And of course, we started on the first climb, big gaps were opening, and I don't know who was riding on the front, because, I never really made it I never made it up to see who was creating the havoc at the front, but gradually gaps were opening, and I was sort of bridging up the whole time, and we got to the top of the first climb. The field was cut in half, so there's only 100 riders left at the top of the first climb, and we went down the other side, and we've got children here, so we've got to keep it clean. I told the story yesterday where I was quite excited on the descent, but fortunately this was before Laka, so it didn't get too messy, but down the descent, got to the next climb, and once again the field was cut in half, and I was like bridging gaps and making my way through the field. We got to the top of the second climb, there's only 50 riders left, so I thought, this is bloody great. Down the descent, penultimate climb, and the director comes up in the car. I could hear him bloody honking his horn, pushing his way through all the cars, and he came up and he goes, Phil, Jean-René, who is Jean-René? Our leader. And I said, I just looked around, couldn't see any, I was in the Peugeot team, so it's quite an iconic jersey even today. They kind of stand out, black and white checks. Couldn't really miss them, but there was no other Peugeot jerseys in the group of 50 riders. So I said, oh, geez, I'll ease up and wait for him. I was pretty buggered. I'll ease up and give him a hand. And he said, no, he's 10 minutes down, he's on the third group, you stay there, but you come see me tonight. You come to my room. But anyway, so, we went down the next descent. Once again, a bit of personal excitement. In Australia, we don't have climbs, so we don't have descents like that, so it was just, it was fantastic. Anyway, to the bottom of the last climb, there's only like 10 riders left. I was in pretty elite company, guys that I had on my wall back in my bedroom. There they were, all around me. It was unbelievable. I remember looking at the guy next to me, and it was Mr. Hinault. But he didn't look like, that image I had in my wall back home, because, which is all, I don't know, well, I don't know if we used, it wasn't Photoshop back then, it was about the 80s. But yeah, he had froth coming out his bloody, mouth, and, he was a sweaty, it wasn't a very pretty sight. And so I noticed on the last climb, riders are taking a drink from the side of the road, like a Coke or something like that, and handing it to the next rider, and, taking a sip and passing it on. So I thought, Hino's looking in pretty bad shape. I'll get some points here. I'll grab a Coke, and, because I was riding on the side, grabbed a frosty Coke, opened it up, and I looked at Hinault, who didn't look in very good state, and so before taking a sip, I offered it to Mr. Hinault, and he looked at me, and I don't, I'd never, we'd never met, or he'd never said hello to me before. He's probably wondering if I was just one of the cyclo tourists who jumped in the bunch, My jersey was down here, and a little bit motley. I didn't have a mullet at that stage, but I I didn't look too tidy, and but definitely more tidy than what he looked anyway. Anyway, I offered him this Coke, and he looked at me in disgust, and he slapped that Coke out of my hand, and it went like this, and I just see the Coke going like this, and I thought, oh, geez, have I meant to stop and get that for Mr. Hino? Was that a slip up? So we didn't start off in the on the best of terms, but later, it was no much later, about 15 kilometres later, we got to the finish, and I took the yellow jersey, and it was only him and me left. So that was my first tour.
So first yellow jersey.
First yellow
wasn't
jersey.
Necessarily in the game plan at the start of the day, then, that yellow.
No, and I guess I should have waited for Jean Rene, but my director reminded me.
Okay, so you've got the yellow jersey on your back. I mean, now as we look back over time, that was a really monumental event, wasn't it, really, in the history of the tour? First non-European person to wear the yellow jersey, first Australian to wear the yellow jersey. Did it feel like such a big deal that day? I mean, had you grown up, following the sport? Were you a bit of a Tour de France nerd, or did you not really grasp the significance of what you just achieved? You're a young guy, you've come in, you got the jersey, great.
Yeah, no, I had no idea of the significance of it. I mean, I wouldn't have thought I'd be here in London, 35 years later, banging on about it. But everybody, anyway, everybody makes a big deal about it. And when you look at the history of the sport, and you've had a lot of English riders up here, a lot of English-speaking riders, and you have Greg up here, of course, and I'd like to think I had something to do with young riders from non-cycling places, non-European countries anyway, inspired them to say, well, it's not an impossible dream to come over here. But
yeah, what really inspired you to come over at that time? Because it was a big thing to do.
Yeah, well, I came over as an amateur 2 years earlier, and to really because I'd won the Commonwealth Games in Edmonton back in '78, and the next step in as amateurs back then, next step in an amateur career after doing well in the Com Games, go to the Olympics. So my aim to come out was, when I first came over here, was to get some experience on the continent. In a French club. I was in an amateur club in Paris. Get some experience and to do the...
that was quite a conveyor belt there, wasn't it?
Yeah, to do the Olympics.
At the time.
But I did really well when I came over as an amateur, and tossed the Olympic dream out the window because I got offered to turn pro, and I never knew if that opportunity of having an offer again would come up. So, caution to the wind, signed a contract, same year as Robert Miller, so we turned pro, and been living the dream ever since.
Yeah, what was that? What was that environment like? It must have been very different. I mean, cycling is a very traditional sport, and you were on a French team, admittedly one that had a number of English-speaking people in it and around it, not all at the same time necessarily. How did that work? Did it feel like a very alien environment at first?
It did. It was a very traditionally French team. Like, I was there, like a couple of years after Thévenet left the team. He won the Tour on the Peugeot team, and they're all French riders. We had Robert Miller and Graham Jones, another British rider. So there were a couple of the riders, but Graham did the Tour a few times. But when I did the Tour that first year, or the first couple of years, there were no other English-speaking riders on the team. And when I first got there, well, I went there the year before as an amateur, and I was used to sort of that environment on a French team, in an environment where you don't, French wasn't the native language, and it was pretty daunting that first year, just coming from a country where cycling isn't, part of the culture, cycle racing, and it was a learning curve. But when I landed on the Peugeot team, I was already sort of semi-prepared for that sort of. There wasn't such a cultural shock as what there was when I was there as an amateur the year before.
A few of those famous cycling superstitions, though, were there?
There are always cycling superstitions, and there possibly still are. In fact, Sean Yates, who was on earlier, I think, he possibly still wears his lucky shirt underneath his jersey. In fact, he possibly even wore it tonight. I remember one time, like you share, you have roomies, and I remember one year, it was like Sean's third year as a professional, and I remember he finished a stage and he took off his bloody shirt in the hotel room, and he had this bloody shirt. It was all kind of ripped and stretched, and holes under the arms, and he's got a beautiful jersey on top, but underneath he had this bloody shocking, it was a woolen thing from a bygone era. That's a bloody cliche, isn't it, tonight? But he had that thing on, and I think it was his lucky shirt. I think he still holds a record time on the Q10.19 from wearing that bloody thing.
What was it like being part of that team? Because as you say, it was an iconic jersey, and it's a team that is still very well remembered, and a lot of people in this country have fond memories of it, partly because of people like yourself and Stephen Roach and Robert Miller, and also going all the way back to Tom Simpson a long time before that. What was the environment like, though? Because you had this English-speaking group of riders, and Alan Piper, of course, was in there as well. But it was a French team. I mean, was it effectively like two teams at the same time, or did it mix well?
I don't think it wasn't like Greg when he had a bit of an issue with Hino in the mid '80s. It was a bit different than that. We were very much a minority, whereas Greg had half the team was his side, I think. But no, I mean when we were on the team, I think we were possibly seen as cheap labour on the team. Our jobs were, domestics on the team. And I was saying last night, one of the prize jobs I had was, pushing my teammates while they're taking a piss.
Are we back to Jean-René now?
Back to Jean-René, yeah. You'd be pushing Jean-René, and it was always into a bloody headwind. Actually, even worse than a headwind's a cross headwind. So, but you don't see that in the job description. It doesn't.
No wonder you left him behind on that other stage.
Yeah, no, that's it, the bloody golden shower.
But you say that you and the other guys, you had to earn your stripes, didn't you? And you had to work for the other riders, primarily the French riders. But of course, that's not going to last forever. When you start going to the front, you start winning races. You had that yellow jersey in your first tour in '81. You had it for quite a long time the next year. And the white jersey as well. Yeah,
it was 10 days in 10 days in yellow in '82, and finishing in the white jersey, which was great. But
there's a famous picture of you in the time trial.
Yeah.
I think it's just behind Eno, and you're riding along like that, as if. Do you remember that moment? As if saying, "Well, what am I supposed to do?"
Yeah,
here?
I was in second place. Hino started behind. Hino started behind me, 2 minutes behind me or something, and I was an okay time trialer, but couldn't go at the pace of Hino. So Hino caught me, and when he came past, I mean, you try and draft, but obviously you've got to be careful about it. It's a bit like not hanging onto a car, but drafting behind cars. But of course, if you're wearing the yellow jersey or if you're at the pointy end of the race, the camera's always going to be on you, and the commissaire's going to be there. And so, in the beginning, the commissaire was, I wasn't right on him, but I was maybe at 5 metres, but following the same line as Hino. And, he must have caught me, I don't know, we used to have really long time trials. I was talking with Sean Yates before, we had time trials of 85 kilometres and stuff like that. So, I think, caught me with, 10 or 15 k's to go. So, even if I could keep him within sight, I could still finish in second or third in the time trial because he was a pretty good time trialer. So, so I was trying to, drift at 5 metres. And the commissaire, Bouvet, I think it was, had a stick with a paddle on the end of it, which you meant to sort of hold the cars back with, and he was slapping me on the back because, he's French and he wanted Hino to clearly get some time on me. But he's hitting me, and so in the end I was just going like this. So there is a photo of me, I'm wearing the white jersey and just going like this, and Hino's, in the full tuck. And but I think I finished. I was in the northeastern France, but I think I finished, 50 metres or something like that. It was still pretty close.
You won a stage that year too, didn't you? I think Nancy.
Nancy, and then stage 3 or something.
Yeah, one of 2 stages. Was it a game changer wearing the yellow jersey? Did it noticeably change your life in any way at that time?
Look, immediately it changes your life. well, it changes on every facet. Even like the first day, got the yellow jersey, top of that bloody mountain in France. The next day we had a time trial in Pau. They had a time trial there this year, which Alaphilippe won. You might remember. Now, I'd ridden some time trials before. I'd won the club 3-day tour on a really good performance in a time trial over there. But we had the time trial the next day in Pau, and I think it was like, I don't know, 35, 40 kilometres. Wasn't super long like some of the ones I was talking about with Sean. But yeah, they say the power that the yellow jersey gives you, and there's no way I was going to win the time trial, but I ended up coming third in my first time trial in the Tour de France. So, I'd come from a shit kick on the back page. I wasn't. I think I was still. I think there was a prologue. That year actually started in Nice, where they're starting in 2020. But yeah, I remember. Even the prologue. I was on the front page, on the first page. And they usually have. It's just in. I don't know what it is, 12 font or whatever. Maybe they have 80 riders on the first page, and I was. I was on the first page. But yeah, to elevate myself. And that's the power that the yellow jersey gives you, and I think I lost maybe 15 seconds on the winner of the stage, which was Jerry Kneedemann. It was a good time trial, and then Bernahia got second, but they gave him enough to pass me on general classification. But to put up a performance like that.
You were one of these riders, a bit like Sean Kelly. I always felt that race competitively throughout the year. You got great placings in major classic races. You've won big races throughout the year. When it came to the Tour de France every year, were you pretty knackered before you even started half the time? Did you ever go to the start line in the Tour? We've said that you finished 5th twice, which is no mean achievement. Did you ever get to the start line thinking you could actually win the Tour?
Look, you've got to be, you've got to be positive, and if you get the jersey, it gives you that confidence, and then the team, is backing you basically to be their leader. Still Jean Rene there, but obviously I put a good performance in, and then my second year another good performance. So turned up to the third year, and I was clear leader of the team. But in hindsight, you've got to be positive. Obviously, when you're leading a team, you've got to be for everybody involved. You've got to be there for the press, for the fans, for your teammates. You've just got to be positive and have belief in yourself, and you go there every year thinking.
We're talking about Fignon and Hino years, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a bit of a club of that era, but you got to be positive. But you go back in hindsight and you think, I finished 5th, but I was at 10 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever it was, and you think, there's a big difference. In hindsight, you think, there's no way I was going to win, but good job for trying.
Was it?
Give it a crack.
We're talking about Grand Tours here this weekend primarily. Was it always the Tour de France for you? What did you make of the Giro and the Vuelta?
Well, I never did the Vuelta. I take people there every year to watch the Vuelta, and there's always a sigh when I say, I never actually raced this.
Yeah.
I raced quite a bit in Spain. In fact, possibly my...
Because the Vuelta was early in the year, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. With the Vuelta, used to be in spring, just after the Classics. But my hit rate and wins in Spain was very good. I was a reasonable sprinter in Spain, whereas in Belgium or in Italy and that, I wasn't. But I did pretty well in Spain. But I never did the Vuelta. I would have liked it. Well, spring was not that desirable because the weather's always questionable. But so I was always. Yeah, I sort of focused on I always focused on Flanders and Tour of Flanders and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and then I'd always take a bit of a break and come back and for the Tour, and you usually do the Dauphiné or the Tour of Switzerland building up for the Tour, and then you have a bit of a rest. When I say rest, it's not like you sipping margaritas out in some island. You're still riding, but. Possibly a bit like the riders now, they race, they'll have a few weeks off racing, and then you try and come back for the Worlds. But Worlds, I never cracked it. I finished in the top 10 of the Worlds, but never on the podium. Yeah.
Still enjoy coming back to the Tour? You mentioned the fact you take tour groups to the Vuelta. You look after people coming to the Tour as well?
Yeah, we come over every year. now we come to the Tour de France. You know, next year's going to be a pretty big year. It'll be over the classics and the Tour de France and Vuelta and Giro and possibly the Worlds in Switzerland. It'll be good. Yeah.
Does it feel like the same race, just bigger?
Yeah, you sort of pinch yourself and think, you know, I can't believe I did this stuff when, you know, back in the day. But yeah, the sport's truly become global now. You know, I mean, it's all relative. You know, television's brought TV into everybody's living rooms, and especially in countries, you know, like the States or in Australia. You know, over here there was always a bit of a presence on television with Channel 4 and back in the day. And yeah, now of course with online streaming and that, it's yeah, you can get it at any corner of the earth.
You must enjoy visiting the UK, being a local and all that. I don't know whether everyone's aware of that in here. A lot of the cycling buffs probably will be.
Yeah, I was actually born in Finchley, just out of town here, so...
So he's one of ours, really?
Yeah. Every year I'd always come back and do the Tour of Britain, and, you know, an event that I won a couple of times, but yeah, won quite a few stages through the years, and every time I did well, you know, it was always, you know, a little byline, Phil Anderson from England.
London-born Phil Anderson.
Yeah.
That was it. That's how every sentence started. For a while.
That's right. You know, they never said Phil Anderson, loser who didn't win today from England.
Oh, good stuff, Phil. We could talk all night. So many stories. It was a great career. It's brilliant to see you here. Thank you for making the journey to join us here in London. It's been an absolute pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. Put your hands together. Show your appreciation for Phil Anderson. Thank you. Thank you. Don't go away, because up next here in the Rouleur Classic Theatre, the Cycling Podcast, live in just a few minutes' time.